So Rapwe stood up, literally stood up all day, and he was holding the sheet rope that controls the sail and just cutting the wind, making sure it doesn't catch on the back side of the sail or the front side of the sail. Because he goes, if it does, we're going over. He's not a big man, but the strength that was coming out of him, I was like, man, there's something else going on here.
So we've talked a little bit about Tawa, a little bit about Rapwe. Can you tell me a little bit also about some of the other crew members?
Two that I would really like to mention are Moses Nelson and his brother Thurston Nelson. So Thurston Nelson was present for mostly every day for our apprenticeship that Gary Guerrero and I did with Tawa. And so he was really instrumental in translating and helping us with the language. And then his brother, Moses, who was also a crew member on our voyage to Guam, was a teacher. He served at PIMS, Pulawatt Middle School. So Thurston and Moses were on the voyage on the way up, as well as Casimiro Christian. We call him Kahimi. And then it was basically Tawa and Rapwe. So all of them, those three, the sailors, Thurston, Moses, and Kahimi, excellent sailors, excellent, knew what to do on the canoe. I was very young at the time and didn't have really much experience on the big sailing canoes. So I was considered, the rookie, the green, the guy that was green. But because of those three, and of course Tawa and Rapwe, you feel like you're part of the team. So there's a lot you can do, and my responsibility was a lot of times was to cook and to distribute the food. So that was on the way up, and then on the way back, Moses got off because he had somewhere to go. He was going to the States, I believe, somewhere. And another crew member got on because he was already on Guam, Edwin Romelu. And that is the sailor that Rapwe took me aside as we were sailing back and said, I really like this man because this young man, he's strong, he stays awake, he keeps his eyes open, and he knows what to do. And later, Edwin was crucial operating a ship called the Sea Haven. And they are missionaries that sailed out of Ponape and did medical missions and deliveries and emergency pickups. Edwin had served on that ship, and the captain of that ship, named Nob, always said, he goes, Edwin makes this ship run, because he's such a good sailor. And in many ways, a navigator in his own right. All these guys, they know a lot. So that was the crew on the way back. So the only crew members left alive now are myself and Kahimi.
Were all of those gentlemen, were they all native from Pulawatt?
Yes, all from Pulawatt.
I'm curious because you were mentioning you're one of the only folks that was, considered green on the trip, but a lot of folks in Pulawatt, they still start at such a young age.
As they pass being a toddler, they're around canoes all the time, at least at that time. So as soon as they can operate a paddle, you get on a small paddling canoe and you go to the other village because you have relatives there, and that your mom or your dad says, hey, take this over to your auntie or uncle. I made some breadfruit, and it can be a young girl, it can be a young boy. Everybody knows how to paddle a paddling canoe. I even had to learn how to paddle a paddling canoe. So they start very young. But just think of it this way: you're in your family, you're growing up in your family's household, and there's a car. There's a car there. You're going to see your mom and dad go get in that car every day and drive, and you're going to get in the car and you're going to hop on and you're going to be in the car seat. Same thing, but with some major differences, of course, in thinking and philosophy and how you act around people. It's a different mindset. There is a a rhythm and a known way of acting and operating. And those sailors that go are there for a reason. They're there not just because they want to go on a trip. They're there because they have skills. You know, when we're underway and we need to change ends, that's a crucial operation. So observing that and the different commands coming from Kawa and Rapui, once they say, okay, pick up the sail and move it to the other side, it's like a ballet. And so all of them knew, you know, what to do. And then everybody acknowledges that the two navigators on board, they're veterans, they're seasoned veterans. So they can, while they can do the work, they don't necessarily have to get up and do it themselves. They can, but they have so much experience that they're watching the sailors who also have experience do these tasks and are pointing out very nuanced things that even I could pick up on that, you know, and say, oh man, he's, you know, the sail is being moved, and there is a movement of that sail that Rapui or Tawa would go, oh, move it a little to the left, or pick it up, or don't put too much pressure on that rope, or pull the rope a little tighter.
On this voyage, and just generally in traditional voyaging, you know, everybody kind of knows what's going on. Besides specifically the leadership of the canoe, everybody's helping everybody and sharing the variety of jobs equally across the canoe, it sounds like.
With regard to leadership, there's a clear distinction, and what is understood in the Pulawat language, Eo Kaparuniwa, that one word on the canoe, that's the navigator. If he says, yeah, move over there, you move over there, you know, but it's not a 10 hut salute type of thing. It's just a known, look, this is the guy that's going to get us from point A to point B. He knows the way, especially if it gets bad and rough weather, you know. Those are the people that command the ship. And I wouldn't even use the word command. They know where they're going, and they're going to get us there. So, but it's a very different dynamic. It's very, you know, relaxed, a lot of laughing, a lot of storytelling, a lot of, you know, that is really important too, is you have a joyful, you know, easygoing, keep morale high, you know, you just want to keep morale high.
How was the voyage back from Guam back to Pulawat?
You know, the voyage up was good. The voyage back we encountered some really, really bad weather on the way back. Pulawat people call it the Shield of Guam, which is a seasonal weather pattern that happens around May, June of that time. And I clearly remember that weather. We left Guam, great weather. I think it was a day or two after we left, kind of around the Marianas Trench, near there. Yeah, and the pattern was this like 30, 40 knot winds, beautiful day, sunny, but the clouds, if you can imagine, long, thin, pancake-like clouds,
okay,
stretched out and just consistent. It wasn't gusts of wind. It was just like the 30 knots stable. And then, of course, that produces very, very large rolling waves. You know, eventually that's going to, and man, you know, I've never been in weather like that, where you go down into the valley, the trough of the between the waves, and you're looking up at walls of water. These waves are not breaking; they're just rolling. But because of the wind being so strong, you cannot sail in that. In other words, the sail just becomes as stiff as cardboard. And so Rapui stood up, literally stood up all day, and he was holding the sheet rope that controls the sail and just cutting the wind, making sure it doesn't catch on the back side of the sail or the front side of the sail, because he goes, if it does, we're going over. That's how quickly that can lift the outrigger and just flip us over. And so it was all day, and I've never seen he's not a big man, but the strength that was coming out of him, I was like, man, there's something else going on here. A discipline of the mind and body that only comes from years and years of being a navigator, and just him being him. So Tawa was sitting there. He was blowing the shell that we use. And I asked the sailors, why is he doing that? He says, trying to get rid of the wind, to protect us. Nobody was talking. We were just looking in the direction where the wind was coming from. Our eyes were like looking there, looking to Rapui. It's kind of like all hands on deck, man. Just be ready. And when it got quiet, I knew. You can feel that vibe, right?
How does the canoe react to going down those troughs?
The canoe is positioned in such a way that the waves, the rollers are coming side to side. They're coming from the direction passing under the outrigger float. And so the canoe is perfectly balanced. So you're just going like this. You're not going up and down facing
okay. Okay.
Because of the way the canoe is designed. You're cutting the wind in such a way that you're always sailing, even when the weather is good. The canoe, the wind is always coming from the outrigger side, so it's perfectly balanced. I mean, those canoes are designed in that way because they just need to be. It was a natural progression, and all the canoes are standardized. Of course, you have different builders that build in certain nuances, but these you're talking about, hundreds of years of evolution of, hey, this works, this doesn't work. And it depends on what you want out of your canoe. Pawa was the builder of the canoe we were on. And Rapui would always comment, he goes, this canoe is strong. He really liked that canoe because it's a strong canoe. Yeah, being out in that kind of weather, after all was said and done, then we were happy, man. Because after that, we were on the water for 2 weeks before we sighted and landed on our first landfall, which is Lamatrek in English. And so, that's a long time. 2 weeks is a long time on a sailing canoe. But I remember Rapui said, when he was a young boy, he was out there in a really desperate situation where weather wasn't cooperating. He didn't tell me who the navigator was, but he said he was a young boy on a canoe with another young boy. And I met that other young boy who was from Satawal. He goes, you remember the story I told you? That's the guy that was with me when we were kids. And they were out there for, I think it was more than a month. And desperate. I mean, out of food, no water, desperate. I won't go into detail about that, but the sailors got very desperate, and fortunately, the navigator that was on that canoe was very patient. He goes, I know we're in a desperate situation, but we've got to hold on because we will make landfall. But he said when they got to their landfall, and I forget the island it was, they had to be carried off. They were so weak, they had to be carried off, and took a lot of time to recover. That is very rare. It did happen, but it's very, very rare. But sometimes, weather, you're not in control of the weather. I mean, that, man.
You folks got through the shield in like about a 24-hour period. Is that about how long it took?
Yeah, 24, 48-hour period when we knew, like, okay, this is done. We're out, And from that period on, it was a little bit of good weather, and then a lot of times we couldn't even sail. And so two weather patterns I remember during that time after the shield, after that bad weather, and when we made landfall, was no wind, and at night having to let the sail down because of these just torrential rain. And we weren't going anywhere. So Tawa, he was the one that said, put the sail down, cover us up, and we'll ride this out until tomorrow. And then I remember on a number of days waking up the next day and going, okay, raise up the sail and let's be on our way. And then just weather not cooperating. And then towards the end of that 2 weeks, during the whole time, but towards the end of that 2 weeks, I would hear Tawa and Rapui talking about and agreeing upon, okay, where are we? They always knew where we were. It's just that the weather was not cooperating.
Wow.
And then, yeah, and then the last like 2 or 3 days, they agreed, okay, this is where we are. And then they said, look out, you guys have to keep your eyes open.